Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you. So this is the Hastings side of the story that Becky started. So we will get going. First, I'm going to set the stage, a little bit of what Becky did, but this is a little bit centered over the south central Nebraska area. So, and it all applies to Omaha as well. So what happened, we had snow depth across the area prior to March 12th. Some areas 10 plus inches and across much of the area. Up to 17 inches in central Nebraska of snow depth on Monday morning, which is the beginning of the week. Then we have saturated frozen ground. The frost depth was 25 inches. So, and it was the frozen ground was saturated from a big rain event in early December, and then the ground froze, and so it was really saturated frozen ground. And we had abundant rain and snow on frozen ground. 2 to 4 inches of rain fell Tuesday to Wednesday of this week. This was what it looked like over south central Nebraska, and up a little bit into northern Nebraska. So this all compounded with the thick ice on the rivers to create just catastrophic flooding across the area. So we had issues all across the state, and it was just not good everywhere. So what happened? So the Hastings NWS office at this point in time, this is Friday morning, we have had some record flooding. We've had flash flood emergencies of our own in our area. We're basically, if you look at a playbook, which we've tried to implement, we're in level 1. We are at the highest level. We've got record flooding on I don't know a lot, but a number of river points. About 8:30 to 9 o'clock in the morning, we get a call from Omaha asking for full backup as they're evacuating the office. At this point, this is akin to what the office looked like. We had 2 people in the office. Our hydrologist, our focal point, Jeremy and Sean. So 2 lead forecasters. We had, I think, 2 survey crews out on the road doing flood surveys. So we had people working, but they were out. So we get this call, and the people there are trying to figure out, okay, we've got to take full backup, we need people. So they started calling people back, and they started calling anybody and everybody who could work that day. So I was called, I was on the evening shift, I was called at 9 a.m., I'm at home with my son, and I was able to get him into daycare and came in. I got there about 11. Rick stopped by to check on some AWIPs archiving and got stuck. They wouldn't allow him to leave from the story. Anyway, so we had everybody come in, and we needed a lot of people to fulfill this mission. And really the issue was we had 2 offices in level 1 flooding. We had Hastings already had record flooding, which is its own large task to deal with. And now we have record flooding from an office who can't provide support to us even. Usually if you're in a backup scenario, radar's down, they can lots of times see the radar and help you maybe with that type of stuff. It was us at that moment. So we needed to figure out the staffing and figure out what was going on. So throughout the day, we're going to get into the story of managing the 2 offices in level 1. So as we get through the day, we've got a bunch of people there. The job's getting done. The mission critical job is getting done. That is our role. That's what we were what our job is. So river warnings were getting done. Flash flood warnings for anything new was getting done. We had the forecast getting done for both offices. So we were getting all of the meteorology, all of the mission critical stuff done. But it really was chaos. We're trying to figure out staffing. We don't know how long this is going to be like this. We're getting information from Omaha. They're out, they're flooded. What are we going to do? How long is this going to stay? And so about mid-afternoon, we had started to get some staffing figured out, and it became apparent that what we were doing just it was chaos, and we needed some organization. So Steve mentioned, what about ICS? So we really started to look into the playbooks. So we got into the ICS playbooks, and looking at those, we needed to identify a incident commander and figure out what we needed. So it took 1 to 2 people, myself, with the help of Steve and some other people, to basically take on this organization of getting into the playbooks and organizing the chaos on the administrative side. I was initially scheduled to do, I was tasked, not scheduled, tasked to do some of the forecast stuff. I was going to take over rivers or something like that. I could not do that. I was unable. I was so taken up. The administrative side completely took up my my role. So what did I do? What took my time? Well, I had to identify what we needed. What did Omaha need, and what did Hastings need? And so we utilized the playbooks. I printed this out, and I sat there and I looked at the tasks that we had identified for each person, and how we could maybe combine if necessary, and identified how many people we needed. That took us to 6 to 7 staff total, basically 3 to 4 per unit per office, and that we decided we probably didn't need as much staffing overnight, so we took that from 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. So from that we moved on so this is kind of what we did. So we had an IC incident commander, that became me. I was figuring out the incident. Then we had Omaha. We needed rivers, forecaster, and then social media and PIO. Initially, again, we're starting this, they're evacuating. They don't have anything. They eventually were able to take over some stuff from their backup, their COOP site, but we're taking social media. So we had somebody on social media because it was huge. We were getting information out, and somebody posted, "Follow Hastings." And so we're not only trying to post as Omaha, we're posting as Hastings some of the same information that's not relevant in the Hastings forecast area, because somebody's told somebody, a group that has been retweeted a lot is following us. So we needed people dedicated to that. And then we also needed people for Hastings for all those same jobs. So that's where the 6 to 7 people came from that we identified. Throughout the event, this wasn't initially, but throughout the event we did try to utilize secondary backup sites. Omaha's secondary is Sioux Falls. In our backup site we have North Platte. We tried to offload. We had Sioux Falls do the forecast for Omaha one night, and also we had attempted TAFs with North Platte, tried to get them to take just one thing off, but unfortunately failed. So it was good to know that it didn't work. So they could not send our TAFs. I believe that has been rectified. One of the big things that we did in we're trying to figure this out, and we're trying to organize what's going on, was what are we doing and how is this impacting the staff at Omaha? We had 2 people come over right away for flooding. The hydrologist and another gentleman came over right away to help with their flooding. So we had them there. We're looking at people coming on TDY to come do the Omaha forecast and their duties, but we weren't really meeting the needs of everybody, so we scheduled these daily conference calls that brought in Brian in Central Region with the NRD, which is where the COOP location was, in our office, and that really allowed us to get on one page of what everybody needed, and that was really fundamental. It gave the Omaha people who were in the office a way to talk to their management, because while we were there, we were in host office, and we weren't, as Becky said, we operate different. So they needed their information. So that allowed an avenue for them to talk, but it also gave us the ability, and me the ability, to figure out what they needed at the very first talk. And then Becky mentioned the NWS chat room for communication. That was really, that was huge. We could talk with the NRD, we could talk with anybody. It was just huge to transmit information back and forth. So really, in this event, I don't know if you guys sat through some of the Incident Commander ICS training. I've sat through a bunch of it, and it was really hard for me, even though I tried, to grasp the importance of an Incident Commander and that structure. It gets confusing. I didn't understand it. I've attempted. Doing it helped. So initially, again, I thought I could do my IC duties. I didn't really call them that at the moment, but what I was trying to do, manage the administrative side with doing the meteorology side. That's what we do most of the time, right? In our offices, your incident commander is your lead forecaster or the lead on duty, and you manage the situation and you might issue warnings or statements or whatever. I was unable to do that in this level of a situation. So it really identified the importance of the incident commander. We did try to combine that IC with just staffing. That's over a weekend, people are off. We could only pull in so much staff, so we did try to combine that IC into some staffing with another, like a forecast, because we figured the forecast was relatively benign. It was all the other stuff that was busy, but that IC work, whoever was the IC and that other stuff, that failed, or didn't fail, but it suffered. They could not dedicate what they needed to both things to do each thing well. Because we just spent a lot of time identifying the needs. And you'd think maybe it'd just take the beginning to get it organized, but this was throughout the whole weekend. We needed our whole team, just like they did there. It happened for them nicely on a Friday, so they had their team there. Our ITO has Fridays off, but they called him back. And he was able to get AWIPS profiles provided for anybody who was coming in off site. He helped with the backup procedures. We have it all documented, but because he was there and able to say, click this, click this, it went faster. So that was helpful when we're trying to get in an emergency situation. It also helped troubleshoot any issues we were having with backup, because you know it's never seamless. The ET staff helped. They assisted Omaha with any field equipment issues that they might need. They were there and ready as necessary. And then Becky mentioned they didn't have an ASA. Our ASA helped with travel orders, especially to get them travel authorizations and to get them hotels in and around Hastings, because we're just north of the city, so there's a couple of places you can look for hotels. So that was useful in that manner. So some of the takeaways for this event, the event as a whole was seen as a success, at least from everything I've seen from inside and outside of the NWS. It looked seamless, even though we all know it's not as seamless as it may seem. And in any high impact event, what I would recommend, get your playbooks out and utilize them. We have since this event utilized them just for level 1 or 2 events in our office where we weren't backing people up, and it's really helped manage and get enough staff there to go through the event and assign an incident commander. So that's really important. In an emergency backup, implementing the COOP, instantly assign an incident commander, and that should be their only assignment. Get that done instantly. Communication is key. As I said, those conference calls and NWS chat were huge. It kept everybody on the same page. And then management was outside of my scope, but the management teams in both offices were constantly talking to each other with identifying needs. And I think Steve will talk more about some of that. As Becky said, it was a challenge because of the different cultures, but it was also a really good, I'd call it blessing, a really nice thing to have Omaha in our office. We had 2 or 3 people at a time coming and living in Hastings, and I worked that weekend, so I got to work with a bunch of them. And that person that's just a name in collaboration chat is one thing, but getting to know them as a person and being able to talk to them, it changes your whole viewpoint on them. It's not as easy to be negative. It's the whole social media world thing and talking about somebody you don't know versus getting to know them. And that was invaluable. I thought it was wonderful opportunity, and I hope we can continue to build on those relationships. As Becky mentioned, keep templates on the cloud so that if you're in a backup situation, you can access them. We were trying to do situation reports for them, for Omaha, and we ended up having to basically just use our templates, which may not be what theirs are, with all the differences and their needs. So it wasn't bad the information got out, but we want to try to keep everything the same. So I recommend if you don't have stuff on the cloud, get it there, because you never know what will happen. Regularly backup AWIPS tools, so that you have them. That was something Becky mentioned. And then the number 10 is kind of Office 7, meet backup office staff to reinforce those bonds. So those are some of our findings and takeaways with our side of the event. Are there any questions? I didn't go through them. I'm on my sheet. Why didn't you guys tell me? Should have just yelled. Sorry.
Great talk. It's good to see. And sorry the TAF thing didn't go from our office.
It's good to know so we can fix it for later.
Right. I heard you mention a couple of different times, and I think Becky too, this magical cloud. Explain what that is and where to get to it.
We utilize the Google Drive. That's what I would recommend. I don't know if Becky has a different thing. The Google Drive, because you can upload things that you could download. You don't have to do Google Slides or something like that. You can just upload something to Google Drive, and that should be accessible to everyone in the weather service.
We're referencing something other than
Yeah, no, just the Google Drive schedules. Ours is on Google Drive, Hastings, but I don't know if yours was.
Not at the time.
And so that was different, and so we didn't have access to that. I don't know if we needed it, but when they were in our office, they could have utilized it, or just off on there at the NRD for them. So the Google, getting things you might not, if it were me, I would take every 4 months or twice a year, upload templates that you might use for social media and sit reports and all that, upload them to the drive and just have them that way if an event comes, assuming you change them frequently. If you don't, then they probably don't need to be frequently updated, but just get that stuff updated.
And just to comment too, you mentioned the playbooks, and in my part of doing the regional AAR for this event, that was one thing that I found out that we did not do well also was follow the playbook.
Yeah, it's initially it was about 3 or 4 hours. We were sitting there working it out without the playbooks, and even though I thought we were kind of doing it, because we do kind of have a version of it that we naturally have learned, but getting them out and literally pulling them out and circling them and looking at them is what really helped organize it.
I was going to say, so I know that we routinely have days throughout the year when we will back up another office because they're doing like whole office training and things like that. And we do have kind of these moments that are practice backups, basically. Do you think a lot of this should now be incorporated as a part of those practice backups to test it for when something like this happens? Like making sure that we can do these things, making sure that we can access any of their stuff, even if we're not actually going to send it out because maybe it's Blue Sky Day on their part and we're not sending out SIP reports or anything. But
to an extent, I think that's helpful, but I think it's the office that really needs, each individual office needs to make sure they can access the stuff, because in that manner they need the stuff on the cloud. I assume you're referring. Is that?
Or any.
I mean, that part I would think the individual office needs to make sure they have it up there as their responsibility. As far as just backup procedures are always kind of hairy, and I would think more backup opportunities, not super frequent, but more backup opportunities with the full spectrum help. I had the experience in my career of doing a number of backups for different reasons, and that gives me a skill set to know that it's difficult and you got to work around things. And so knowing that, whereas somebody who's never done a backup or this, it's more difficult. So doing it more often would give more people the experience. So that's just my opinion on that.
I will have time for one more question. Do you remember how many days we were backing up Omaha and did not knowing how long we have to back them up impact anything you had to do as an IC?
I think in the end it was a week, full week. But we, as the IC, I took things in chunks. So I initially staffed that day. I tried to staff through the weekend. So this happened on a Friday. I tried to staff through the weekend because I knew we needed to get that stuff figured out. And then I think, or maybe we even went through Monday. And then on Monday, I was also there, I believe, and we refigured out for the week because it was evolving and changing. Initially, Friday and Saturday and some of Sunday, we were doing a lot of our own people, Hastings people covering for Omaha because they weren't there. And then as it evolved, more people from Omaha were able to come and be able to do their forecast, but sometimes it was how many, what time they were going to get there. And so it was an evolution, so it was chunks. And Becky said it too, staff flexibility. People had to be flexible in our office. People worked a crazy amount of overtime, and they came in on crazy hours, but the flexibility of being called at the last minute and working was huge.
Okay, thank you, Gerald.